The recording has started.
Okay, before the presentation starts, we'd just like to review the online accessibility statement, which serves as a reminder of resources available for our students. So your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive, accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this event that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center, or the OAC, at snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430, or the Campus Accessibility Center at cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118 as soon as possible. Attendees may also complete the OAC Live Captioning and Live ASL Interpreter request form and provide at least 1 week advance notice to coordinate event accommodations. So I now have the pleasure of introducing our host for today's session. We have Dr. Reicherzer. So Dr. Stacee Reicherzer is a licensed professional counselor who serves as clinical faculty in the SNHU counseling program. Dr. Stacee, as she's professionally known, presented her first TEDx talk in February 2021 and published her first self-help book, The Healing Otherness Handbook: Overcome the Trauma of Identity-Based Bullying and Find Power in Your Difference, as part of the new Harbinger Publications Social Justice Series. She received Southern New Hampshire University's Distinguished Faculty Award in 2018 for her innovation work in teaching counseling students dream bigger and live accordingly. She travels the globe to teach and engage audiences around diverse topics of otherness, self-sabotage, and imposter syndrome. Stacee, the floor is now yours. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, I'm so excited as well. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for making time today. Uh, we're gonna have quite a bit of material, but the thing I would say is this: it's a very experiential workshop. My hope is that you will find things that are going to be very useful for your career development, for your plans, your goals, your vision for yourself, and that as you move forward from this presentation, you will have something that you can take with you that you'll remember, that you will think back about and say, "Oh my gosh, you know what? I remember that day I came to this epiphany, and I made this decision for myself," and that you'll be able to return to this again and again in times to come. So, but however, just this is going to be very experiential. What I mean by that is that I'm going to be guiding you through some exercise to make this really organic and very growth oriented. However, you don't need to do anything you don't wish to do. I'm going to have some suggested activities that you may write out. You can use certainly Word or another program if since you've got your laptop open. If you wish to write something manually, you can do that. Or if you just want to sit there and ruminate on thoughts as well, you could do that as well. So whatever is going to work for you is what works for you. So I'm glad you're here for career choice making in the age of the COVID-19 bully. And what you're going to leave with today are 4 tools that you can use today for talking back to the COVID-19 career bully. You'll also leave with a renewal of energy and inspiration to move forward in your goals in a manner that you, and not the COVID-19 bully, have determined. So let's get started, and let's talk about why a bully. Why would we call something like COVID-19 a bully? Well, if you think about it, it makes a great deal of sense. So a bully, after all, has multiple experiences that they bring to you. A bully will isolate you. A bully will threaten you and leave you feeling deathly afraid. A bully takes everything they can from you and diminishes your hope and spirit. And a bully keeps coming at you and coming at you, leaving you feeling helpless. And if you've experienced bullying in your life, you can reflect on these things and probably recognize how bullying has shown up and that it probably has a lot of these qualities that I'm describing here. It sounds pretty thoroughly like a bully to you, I would imagine, and maybe there are even a couple more that come to mind. Well, it sounds a whole lot like COVID-19, and that's actually a good reason. We've done some studies. I say we, I mean people who were doing great research in the field, and I consider myself one of healthcare professionals. However, I wasn't actually the person conducting these. But the Brazilian study with older adults, age 70 plus, 35 older adults, is phenomenology. This was a study that was based in interviews and asking people to tell their stories. De Maio Nascimento identified themes of sleep disorders, joint pain, loss of appetite, weight loss, and reduced functional capacity. And this was just things that people were experiencing during 2020, during COVID, as a result of COVID. In a Canadian survey of college students, we see these authors who identified that people who reported no pre-existing mental health conditions now expressed, after being quarantined due to COVID, an increase in stress and decrease in their ability to self-regulate emotions. They also had an increase in symptoms of depression and anxiety. So that tells you that there's something that was affecting people both from one end of the age spectrum, who are age 70 plus in another part of the world, and this group of Canadian college students. And you can look at that and say, yeah, I understand exactly what they're talking about, because this makes a great deal of sense. So these things tell us a bit about the extent of COVID. There was similarly another Canadian study with expectant mothers found that 57% reported elevated depression, 30% experienced heightened anxiety, and 19% reported insomnia over averages for pre-COVID-19 records of pregnant women. So in other words, records that have been taken for 2019, 2018, 2017, there are statistical averages on the number of women reporting elevated depression, anxiety, insomnia, etc. So what we see is this extraordinary increase that pregnant women reported over 2020 as during this period of COVID. So you look at this and say, yeah, I definitely understand what these 70 plus year olds, these college students and these pregnant women are all talking about, because I was living it. We were all living it. So you understand what this is all about. And conclusively, most of us were experiencing a lot of fear that resulted in symptoms which resembled with those we know to be real of people who are bullied. So just as you think about the experience of isolation and fear and having a lot of anxiety and sometimes feeling really hopeless, all that stuff that happens with bullying is happening with COVID, has been happening with COVID. This is stuff that we've had going on now for over a year. And so we're now starting to see some long-term residual effect from this stuff. So COVID-19 has, of course, impacted you and everybody else in the rest of the world directly. It's reshaped the world's economy. Specifically, it's also reshaped a lot in your own professional landscape. It's not over yet. And in fact, in some areas, we're seeing an increase even as we are rolling out vaccinations, even as vaccination records are being set every day. We are seeing numbers in COVID cases creeping up in some of our populations. We're seeing hospitalizations increase, and it really has embedded itself in our collective story of 2020. Nobody who has memory of 2020 is ever going to forget this. So this will be something that your children will remember. This is something that you will remember. If we're all alive in 40 years, we'll still remember what 2020 was all about just as vividly as we remember 9/11. As those of us who are from the region of New Orleans remember Hurricane Katrina. For those who are in the mid-Atlantic and New York, remember Hurricane Sandy, etc. It's these kinds of catastrophes that have touched our lives, and COVID-19 has marked 2020 and is something that we will never forget. So in terms of career development, I suspect that this bully has instilled a lot of doubt and maybe left you with a lot of questions. These can look like will the plans I made still be workable in our new normal? How will I compete with so many other qualified people for fewer available jobs? If I take a risk and start my business, what happens if another pandemic hits us? Very valid question. Certainly, what we saw were many wonderful and smart entrepreneurs who just had great business plans that launched businesses that just failed because of COVID. People's restaurants, people's bars, people's stores, people's hair salons, all kinds of things failed due to the extraordinary economic pressure that COVID placed on them, and they just simply couldn't exist anymore. And that's a reality that nobody had ever forecasted because nobody had ever lived through anything like this. So maybe there's some others that are going on for you, and you can share your big scary question that you're contemplating right now. I think we have the chat available for anyone who has thoughts of their big scary question that they've been contemplating in terms of COVID and its impact in their career development. And if you wish to go ahead and type that in the chat, you're free to do so. I'm going to sip my tea and I'm going to keep going. So, because I think the important thing is that we're not allowing the bully to win. So what I'm going to proffer to you today are 4 tools for change that you can use now in refocusing your career goal. Clarity, compassion, creativity, and sass. Because you wouldn't be coming to a presentation with a 50-year-old transsexual woman if you didn't expect some sass out this deal. So this is what you're here for. So you're going to get that. So let's get clear though first. So what I want you to do is to begin seeing fears for what they are. And that's what we're going to do. That's what our exercise right now is. So I'd like you to just please, if you would, take a moment to allow your body to rest comfortably wherever you're sitting. And I'll guide you through a brief exercise for clarifying what the COVID bully has instilled. So what I want you to do is right now, just notice the big scary stuff that's been going on for you, the thoughts, the things you've been questioning, and really just ponder this. And take a deep breath in through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. We're going to do this again. In through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Do it one more time. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And you can just continue to breathe like this, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And if you have interrupting thoughts, that's okay. Just notice these as they come to you. Label them thinking and allow them to drift away. Thoughts about what you need to do after you leave here. Thoughts about lists and deadlines and other worries of the day. Just allow yourself to move away from that for a moment so that we can focus our energy toward the part of ourself that is most in need of healing right now. And I want you to spend some time thinking about the ruminations you've had about COVID and its possibilities for your life. And just noticing if perhaps there is an extreme word that you've been using. Always, never, no, as in no one, no how, whatever it may be. Nobody, none, must, or should. Just contemplate and see if there's one of those words that's been sticking with you that you're happening to notice that's really present right now in this present situation. I'll give you a few seconds just to contemplate that. And just thinking now about the extreme word, you're never, you're always, you're must, you're should, you're nobody, you're nothing, you're never, whatever it may be. Just reflect back over your life, and I'd like you just to think about when this extreme word may have shown up for you in other occasions. With that, you're going to be thinking about the circumstances of these events. What happened? Where was this extreme word that showed up for you? What were the circumstances and and the struggle it brought with it? I'm going to give you a few seconds to go ahead and just contemplate that and think about your struggle word, the extreme word, your always, your never, your should, your must, your nobody, your no, whatever it may be, that's sitting with you and that has been a dominant word that you've used a lot. And if it's been a word that's shown up for you, just really thinking about how, as you said, you do a scan over your life from a place of calm, just noticing this word and its frequency, just how it's come up over the years in various tasks, various things that you were engaged in, and notice the struggle that it brought with it. And maybe at the time it seemed so important and you were just so into that struggle. But also, I wonder if maybe you could notice as well that maybe it brought some unnecessary struggle, and that even the things that were so very stressful at the time that you were stressing over maybe weren't as important in retrospect, or maybe they corrected themselves, or maybe they were not as extreme as you saw, as this word somehow instructed you that they were. So just spend a few moments with that. And as you do, I want to help guide you to a place of compassion. And self-compassion is such an important tool, and it's one that is such an elusive one, sadly, because we struggle to be easygoing with ourselves, to recognize that when we are engaged in our extreme word and the beliefs and behaviors that go with it, that we're involved in something that sometimes is very perfectionistic. Sometimes we are holding ourselves to just an impossible expectation. Sometimes we are putting extraordinary amounts of stress on a situation that does not require it for our lives. And we do this and just create so much more difficulty that doesn't need to be there. And yet, when we do that, how difficult it is for us then to somehow say, you know what, I forgive myself for this. I realize what I'm doing. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to go a little easier here because I realize what's happening. I realize that I'm just making this mountain out of a molehill. I am making things so doggone much more extreme than they need to be. I am catastrophizing. I'm making something really, really bigger than it really is. I am freaked out. I'm really upset because I got a B instead of this A. I know y'all are students. I know some of y'all are like that. I just, I'm supposed to not get like this. I'm not supposed to be upset right now. Whatever that is, I'd like you just to notice that. Notice the challenges to compassion, and the difficulty you sometimes have had in giving it to yourself, the acceptance, the forgiveness, just the appreciation of what it is to be human, and just the experience of tendencies to fall into certain thought loops. We just do that. Oh my gosh, we get these thought loops. I get into thought loops too. I was so mad at myself the other day. I was baking a birthday cake for my friend, and it messed up. And I thought, I should know better than this. I make cakes all the time. Why did this recipe not happen for me? And I was so upset with myself. And I thought, it's just a cake. It's just a cake. It's, I was it's just not that big of a deal at the end of the day. But for me, I had to recognize, oh, wait a second, I need to go easier on myself. Maybe it wasn't a good recipe. It could have been anything. Maybe I did just mess it up. I really can't tell what I did to this day. I can't figure it out. But you know what? It just didn't matter that much. It wasn't a lovely cake. It wasn't what I hoped it would be. That's okay because there was a lot of loving intention, and the person I baked it for didn't love me any less and doesn't love me any less for messing up this birthday cake that he'd hoped for. So that's an okay thing. And return. But let's take this moment though to return to the role that your extreme word, your always, your never, your must, your should, whatever it is. Notice that role that it's played in your life and the limitations that your extreme word has played in the past. And just consider that. And I think this is a good moment to maybe write out some of these things. I know that I see a lot of you are writing things in the chat, in the chat, and that's great. And I'll look forward to reviewing that later on. But you can write this in wherever you wish to, certainly, or you can just kind of capture it in your own heart. Um, Notice the limitations that your extreme word has played in the past, and just write out what it's done. Okay, so as you're spending a moment just noticing this extreme word in your life, I think you can see that it's played a role and probably shaped a lot of your core beliefs about yourself. Maybe it's placed some limitations. Maybe it's led you to sabotage yourself in moments when you might otherwise have moved forward with a vision or a dream. Maybe it has limited you and made you feel like you were somehow an imposter or a phony, even though you weren't. And maybe that's something that you're even dealing with right now in a classroom setting or a professional setting. So that's an important thing to get clear on right now because this is the place to begin doing this work. This COVID bully has brought a lot of stuff to us right now, and this is an opportune moment to do some really great work. So, with that, uh, I just want some things that might have helped have done keep you from setting out on a life plan or prevented you from taking the next step in a relationship. Oops, didn't mean to jump forward. Boop. Um, Boop. There we go. One more time. Okay. And with that in mind, I want you to go ahead and just think about that earlier time in your life, that moment where it seemed to really place a particular limit on you. Maybe it is that it's something that was going on for you last week. Maybe it's something that was going on for you 10 years ago or when you were a child, whatever it was. Just notice the role that this extreme word has played in your life. And I want you just to see that person you were then. Except imagine if you were watching them like it was a story at a movie screen. Maybe you haven't been to a movies in a while. I certainly haven't, but I bet you've been to them before. So imagine that you're alone in this theater and watching this scene, watching you in this scene with this really controlling word that's been existing in your life, and spending a moment of time with that, noticing first of all you in this scenario, and then backing that camera up a little bit. Notice the context, the setting, the other players who were involved in that scenario. Who else was there? What were the other? What was the setting? Who were the people that were involved in it? And the struggles, the doubt, and the fear of failure that this person, this younger version of you that you're watching now on the screen, was having. And I want you just to take this person in, just like you did, just like you would in a movie where you're just seeing a protagonist that you're starting to really come to love. You're starting to really, really care about this person a lot and their struggles. And you're seeing them, doggone it, they're with that word again. They're in their heads with this big struggle and they're just grappling with it. And just for a moment, I wanted you to allow yourself to love this person for their struggle as you would love a struggling character who was battling the odds in a movie. So just think about that and notice you up there with your struggle, dealing with these hard things in your life and this great big belief system that's just limiting your experience so much. And just for a moment, allow yourself to feel love for this person. I'm gonna stop speaking for a moment so that you can just allow that to be. Let's shift back then to your present circumstance and notice how you use the extreme word today in creating a similar pattern of struggle to your past. Again, noticing the context, your present setting where this extreme word is getting used a lot in your mental space. Noticing the players involved, who else is in your life that maybe that you encounter that may bring this up for you, that may sometimes reinforce this, that may trigger you into a place where this stuff starts spiraling, and just how this feeds rather your doubts whenever you're using your extreme word, that thing that you're most attached to, that always, that never, that should, that must, whatever it is. And just noticing its impact in your experience right now. And I want you to write out for exercise 2, what does that person from the past who struggled so much need you in your present life to do differently for this story now to be different? What needs to happen so that this movie has not a happy ending, because we're going to have a sequel because you're going to keep living after this, but as this period comes to a conclusion, as this time with COVID is coming to a conclusion, what do you, as the hero of this story, what do you deserve to do differently to correct the situation for the person you were in the past? Just want you to spend a few moments feeling this thought of what you are needing right now in order to correct the past. I'll be silent for about 10 more seconds. And now that we've done some of this kind of deep and heavy work, we're gonna play in creativity, and this is where it starts to get fun. You've gotten clear now on the use of your extreme word and the role it's been playing, and it's time for you to begin acting creatively and to identify the path forward and those things that will allow your mind to discover and to generate and to journey. And that's what this is about, because it's about re-careering yourself and choice making. So I'd like you to with that commitment to your career that you reflected on, and that you've been thinking about, and that's kind of got you and brought you here, I'd like you to spend a few moments and consider who are the people and groups maybe that you're needing to reach out to now. What's really needed right now? who needs to hear from you and who do you need to hear from? Think about as well additional skills you may need to round out those that you already have for your life. For right now, your career choice making, certainly. And certainly for those of you who also uncovered some deeply personal things that are going on right now where this struggle exists, maybe some additional life skills that might need rounding out to add to those that you already have. And finally, I want you to really lean in with looking at the scary parts that you've been avoiding and that you now are ready to tackle. This is important. Again, I'll be silent for a few seconds just to allow you to contemplate. And then you're going to write a brief prompt for yourself. The who, what, and when. Again, for who do you need to reach out? This is just a prompt. Just write this down. This is an action item. This is an action step. This is the people you're needing to reach out to, the groups. What do you need to do? If it's a professional organization that's going to help you grow, if it's the SNU career counselor because you need to go ahead and get some assistance with bringing your resume into order or some interviewing skills. Certainly anything like that that is career choice making, those are important things to be thinking about. It's about your resources, who in your community can help you to build toward those. That's very, very big for you to be thinking about and to getting you unstuck at this moment. Again, this is a presentation specifically about career choice making, but if you do have personal stuff that's needing assistance and support, it's okay to use this for work with this personal part of your experience. Certainly, I think it's important that you, however, do name the things that are needing to happen right now, the people and the groups you need to reach out to, additional skills you may need to round out those you already have. Again, you're writing these out now, just capturing that just so that you have it down on paper or that you have it down in a Word document or whatever it is. And the scary parts, those scary parts, the things that you have been avoiding, but you're now ready to tackle. And now is the moment to tackle those, because right now is the moment where you've got a point of awareness, where you've got momentum, where you've got an opportunity to do something that you are now clear it needs changing for your life so that you're not being stuck anymore, and that you can move forward in this vision, whatever it is for yourself, whether it's reigniting a dream, whether it's discovering something anew, whether it's choosing a different direction, whatever that may be. This is what you're writing for yourself. Again, you've contemplated it, now you're writing it. I'm going to shut up for about, I'll give you a whole 15 seconds, and then I'll continue on. And what I want to remind you of is that when you're in doubt, know that the extreme word is probably needing a workaround. Because that extreme word, like I said, even for those of us who have done a lot of work, it's amazing that an extreme word will show up, and it's my extreme word tried to show up the other day when I was messed up my cake. But you know what? I had to go ahead and work around that. And so what you now have is an exercise to help you work around it. So you know your extreme word and its work and how it's worked as a roadblock in the past. I want you to think about this. What works for you to get out of your own way with things? When stuff is just blocking you, think about this. Think about the things that have worked for you in the past, because you know what? There's the tools that you already have are already native to you. And so this is just about sharpening those and reusing them in a very intentional way. So what works for you to get out of your own way with things? And Or is there a process of creation that you need to engage for the first time or to re-engage? Is this something new, something that you're probably needing to work around for the first time if you've never done it before? Give it some thought. Give some thought to that. And how will you use this method to work your way around the barrier that the extreme word has placed? Give it some thought and think about how what you've done in the past can work now, or alternatively, based on what you're noticing right now, what's the workaround? Thinking whatever's coming to mind, it's okay just to capture that. It's good if you've just given words and thoughts and ideas and you've just got some kind of a mental thing. I say go with it. It's important just to note what's coming to you as a workaround, because there's probably something very potent and very real in that, whatever you're noticing. And from there, we're going to act with sass. This is the final stage. This is the final stage of this process that deals with action. And this is you talking back to the COVID-19 bully. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my friend Sassy St. James to kind of generate this for you and to help move you along. Now, Sassy was a transsexual entertainer from San Antonio, and she's a bit older than I. She came out in the 70s, and she began living as a woman full-time in the 1980s. Sassy was ridiculed. Sassy had rocks thrown at her. Sassy encountered violence on multiple occasions, living and growing up in San Antonio, first as a gender nonconforming boy and then as a transsexual woman. Sassy experienced profound mistreatment in her life. And yet, when she got on stage and she chose the name Sassy St. James because she was unwilling to let the transphobic world that she grew up in, that was San Antonio, Texas, in the 1980s, tell her how she was supposed to be, how she was supposed to think about herself, and how she was supposed to exist in the world. She made a decision to talk back to the world and to live fully. And when Sassy got on the microphone, you knew that you had somebody who loved themselves, who cared about themselves, and who was no longer afraid of what the world was going to throw at them. And if Sassy St. James can do it, then you can do this too. So with that in mind, we're going to do a final exercise here. And that's beginning with noticing what the bully has done to you to halt your professional beliefs in yourself. Just noticing that. And what do you need to say to the bully right now? What do you expect to tell the bully when it tries to block your path in the future? And what's the first thing you're doing for your career after you get out of this session? In summary, the COVID-19 bully has taken a lot from you and from all of us. You came to doubt some things about your present and your future career outlook as a result of that. That doubt was seeded by the extreme words you've used throughout your life. Whatever your key word was, it became even more pronounced during this time, and you began using it a lot, probably, to limit yourself and to limit your dreams and your vision of what was possible for your future. Remember, though, that you are more than what your bully would have you believe. And your path beyond the bully begins today, and it doesn't have to stop tomorrow or even years from now. I really appreciate all of you, and this is all the places you can reach me. I'm at my website, Dr. Stacee. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, and this is my new book, The Healing Otherness Handbook. So I think that we are ready to turn this
I
over
think we
for a
are. Thank you
Q&A.
so much, Dr. Stacey, for these powerful exercises and just creating all these opportunities for reflection. It looks like, everybody has been really engaged, so we appreciate everybody, participating. And I hope that, that we've done some really great reflection to, like you mentioned, have some tools against the COVID-19 bully. So we would love to take some questions at this time. So feel free to share your reflections or questions in the chat below, and we'll be able to relay those to Dr. Stacey. But we just hope that you're able to keep those reflections and those tools handy, so that you can really, do some of this work continuously after this session as well. Wonderful, Dr. Dora. What a lovely way to spend some afternoon
Thank you,
time is what we're hearing.
thank
And
you,
I couldn't
thank
agree
you.
more.
Thank you. And Regina, thank you so much for hearing the Sassy St. James story. Uh, well, Amanda Claire Andres asked, "How do we know that we are affected by COVID? Will it come out later? Will it come out later? The stress." That's a good question. I think, and I'm assuming when you say affected by, I mean, obviously you mean the mental impact of being isolated and things like that. These are things that probably I'm going to say you you would begin noticing, and you would have been noticing for some time, and what we would expect to see is that a change in mood, perhaps as you were more isolated as a result of this, as you were cut off from being able to spend time with your family, with doing travel, whatever it is that was important to you, that you started to notice yourself feeling probably a bit diminished, feeling just less energetic, feeling less joyful, certainly, as you were less able to engage in things. They reached a point where we all reached what's called what Skype fatigue, Zoom fatigue, and yet here we are in a video call. But these things came about and brought a lot to us. So if you've got a level of fatigue that you didn't have before, I think that's really a good indication. But also, if you've lost some assurance in your career, and I think this was the important part that I wanted to make sure people came away with today, was if you feel less secure in your career choices or in your ability to make good career decisions. That's really what this is about, and I think that's a really good indication that you're being affected by this. So my hope was today, because this was about career choice making, that you were able to use some tools to really reset yourself, and your career aspirations and professional goals, because those are the things that are obviously, that's what the Leads conference was about, and certainly that's the part that where people are suffering. But if there's any part of your life where you're feeling diminished, or more limited, less zestful, that's a pretty good indication that there's been just some direct impact here, and that's a very very real and very normal experience for people to have. So that was a long answer to a question. So. Uh, Um, Thank you, Alexander.
Looks like we
Yeah, I've
have
got another
another.
question. I see.
Oh,
Okay, I
good.
think I got it. How do you stay positive in the face of so much hate? My daughter is part of the LGBTQIA plus, and we live in a small southern town, and she receives so much hate, even from the principal. How do you keep saying they do not matter and their opinions do not matter? That's a really good question. I think it's an special challenge, particularly because when we're talking about children and adolescents, Heather, I think it's difficult because that's an age when kids really want to fit in. They want to feel a part of something, and belongingness needs are such a normal part of the experience. And so the difficulty for that part of your experience is that that's not what's being given right now. But the experience that I point to with this is that that's that even though this seems like the world right now, that's not really the bigger world. There's really something else that's out there and it's beyond it. There's a loving, accepting, and embracing community that exists of transgender people, the people who love trans folk, people who are loving and embracing and inclusive of the LGBTQIA plus community, and that the challenge I think right now is to reframe this, that what seems like the world right now is not the entire world, and that there is a place where acceptance can happen, and where empathy, where your child will be loved and embraced, and I think that's a thing to be aware of, is that we're here. There are people who are here, who are doing these things, who are living our lives very happily and very, very joyfully, very successfully, and that there is a very joyful part of our identity and our experience to be had as she was able to learn from this and learn how to respond with resiliency, and to recognize that there's more to the story and more to her experience than just what somebody who doesn't have an investment in her or her well-being is trying to define. And I think that's a hard sell, I think, for a kid this age, but it is a reality that I hope can be extended to her. So it's a great question. I thought I was just going to be talking about career choice making, but but I guess if that's what you'd like to know, well, then we'll just talk about that. So I wonder, Gail, did you happen to see any other questions that came up, or anything else that was that I needed to perhaps speak to?
Yeah, so we do have one other question here. So we have Vicky, who has shared that she's her own bully and tends to struggle with
Sure.
imposter syndrome. And so, how do you overcome fear of putting yourself out there?
I'm going to tell you, this is such a real thing. Imposter syndrome. This is actually some of those things that we first started talking about in the 1970s, when professions began opening up for women, and women started to enter into the workforce in professions that had not previously had a lot of women in them. And as women were suddenly going into these executive roles and into these settings where they had not previously had access, a number of these women felt like phonies. They felt like imposters because it was such a foreign environment. They didn't feel that they were there because they were anything other than a token, that they were trying to fill the business's quota on what was understood to be diversity at the time. Of course, it was a very, the 1970s, very limited perspective of diversity, which means that these were oftentimes the experiences of white women we were talking about, white cisgender women. So it was a very limited pool. But these women were also realizing, though, that they were there and that they had an enormous amount of pressure to prove competence and to appear competent in all things. Well, what's true is that in any work setting, we're not always going to be competent all of the time. I've been a counselor educator since 2006. I'm not competent at everything all of the time because there's always something new to my profession. There's a new situation I've just never dealt with. And that's a good thing. It means that it's a very expanded profession. It continues to expand, but there's new things that I just haven't done. But to be able to say, I need help with this, or I'm uncertain about this. Well, what that depends on is an environment that is safe. And I think the thing we have to learn is to be vulnerable with those we trust. The challenge for us is if we're in an environment that doesn't support vulnerability, that it will invariably drive the wrong behaviors. An environment where people can't express a uncertainty or anything other than feigning confidence is going to be an environment that sets people up ultimately for failure, because what you have then are a whole lot of folks that are trying to be something that they are not yet. They're trying to pretend that they're competent in things that they're not, and they become oftentimes some people will become aggressive in response to that and things like that. There's a lot of ways that people compensate for it. So my recommendation is that if you're spending time feeling like an imposter in any part of your life, then it's important to be able to explore what that's about, and determine, is there somebody in your organization, particularly a supervisor, somebody who wants to support you, who can support you in your vulnerability, and to whom you can say, I haven't been exposed to this yet, and so I'm wondering what maybe I need to know, or I'm feeling a bit uncertain in this situation because I see two different viewpoints and multiple perspectives here, whatever that may be. Is there somebody there to whom you can? If you don't have that, I think that's probably a pretty telling thing about your organization. But the thing I would say is, don't dismiss out of way that somebody is not going to be receptive to you if they have shown a willingness to accept to support you and to accept your right to ask questions and to embrace the vulnerability of uncertainty. Those are important things, and to know about yourself that you might sometimes be creating a belief that you should be all-knowing when there's no way that you possibly can be. So that's my belief about that for engaging this in the workspace. So Gail, I know you've been doing a good job of monitoring this while I've been speaking. What other questions have I maybe missed?
Yeah, so you spoke a little bit to Brooke's question, which was about practicing vulnerability, actually in that answer. So thank you for that. The one question that it looks like many folks have is, do you have any advice for older adults making career changes during the current situation with the pandemic?
I do. And in fact, I just wrote a blog for women over 50. And I don't know yet if it's published, but if you follow me on Dr. Stacee, then you'll learn about it really quickly. So, so follow my website, and if I haven't published it yet, it will be, because my publicist was publishing my publication. So, for older adults who are returning to school, first of all, you probably, if you're doing that, you're no doubt coming in with a lot of imposter syndrome yourself, maybe doubting, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Feeling a bit like the other, because you're looking around the classroom and seeing people who are much younger in their careers than you, if not chronologically younger, and questioning that. But I'm going to tell you about a student that I worked with. I'm not going to name her or anything like that, but she was a clinical mental health counseling student, and she began her program in her early 50s. Now, a master's program in clinical mental counseling, first of all, it's almost 3 years from start to completion, but then there's 2 years after that when the post-master's graduate has to work toward licensure in their state. So this is an individual who will be licensed fully by the time she's in her mid-50s, most likely. Mid to late 50s, possibly even. So she was really starting to question that. But it was her second career that she came in and joined our program. But then when she did it, though, when she showed up for it, there was something that was instantly there, because she had the magic about her, the first of all, of life experience that was really useful. And I'm going to tell you, for this kind of a profession, when you've got a lot of life experience, you know what it is to talk to people. She's a mother. She knows what kids' experiences are. She knows what it's like to have kids. She knows what women go through, what kids go through. She knows what people's experiences are, and she was immediately trustworthy to a lot of people. it was not hard for her because when she got into internship, people would see her and immediately assume that she had more experience than she did, simply because she was a woman in her 50s. And so she had something that was already there, that was built in, and it was really remarkable. But most importantly, she was also a magnificent counselor. She just had that gift of it. She could really, really do it. And I think the important thing about it is that if you're committed to the work, if you are in a program that you love passionately and that you feel zestful about, people are going to see that and they're going to respond to you. Faculty are going to respond to that because there's nothing. As I've been a counselor educator, as I said, for many years, and whenever I'm in a classroom and I see that student who just gets it and who just really has that love and that commitment for it and they put themselves into the paper, it just brings me joy. And that's the student that when it's time to grade, and oh my gosh, I've got 18 papers, I don't want to do this. That's not always fun here, just between us. But I'll think, oh, I can't wait to see what so and so wrote this week, and I'll be looking for their paper because I'm always excited about what this student is going to bring. So the thing I would say is, don't create a belief that somehow your age is going to be a barrier. I mean, certainly ageism is a reality in the world, but I think knowing your profession and knowing your worth to the new profession that you're joining is really going to be important. And I think if there's anything doubtful that you're feeling, or some insecurities about your resume or interviewing skills, anything like that, our career center, I do want to. I know it sounds like I'm ballyhooing them, but I have a great deal of regard for SNOO's Career Center. I've worked in many universities. I've not seen a group as robust as this, who just are so very, very involved and so tuned into student experiences. So definitely a recommendation that I have to check in with them as well. I think we could probably answer one more question, Gail, if you saw something that looks good for us.
We actually got all of the questions answered, so thank you. And I just want to conclude with, I think Phoebe, encapsulated this better than I could articulate, which is this has been a delight to listen to, and thank you for reminding me of the importance of utility of zest in
You're
sex.
welcome, Phoebe, and everyone else.
Well, yes, thank you for your wonderful questions. And with that, we'll go ahead and pass it to Gail, who will be sharing some resources and some links here. So, Gail, you're all ready to take the floor.
Perfection. Thank you. Right above you right now is a poll that you can type your SNHU email address into if you're interested in receiving a worksheet that will allow you to deepen the work that you started here today. You provide your SNHU student email address, and Dr. Stacey will be able to reach out to you directly from her business. The organization that you will hear from is the Otherness Workshop, as well as in the chat we had, and we will share again, the link of how you can get to Dr. Stacey's site, the link for her book, and I don't want to forget to put in there, she recently did a TED Talk, and I would love to share that link with you so the opportunity to hear even more from her. We're going to give it just about 1 minute so that we can keep gathering those names.
I sure appreciate you. Thank you, Gail.
We are honored to have you with us today. Thank you. This was the perfect ending to everyone's day. You are incredible and powerful, and I thank you for it.
Thank you.
So if you're trying to share your email address, please make sure that you do it in that poll right up above. You'll see a spot in between the poll and the chat where it says type your answer here. That will allow us to pull all the email addresses right from the space. Perfect. I'm going to give it just about 10 more seconds. Thank you. And if one of my fabulous colleagues, as I am closing out this session, could also reshare Dr. Stacee's site and webpage, that would be fantastic. That's another great way that you can follow up on her blog and see the great conversations that she's having. Thank you so much, Chantel, and thank you to our wonderful presenter, Dr. Stacee, and to all of you for attending and participating in this session. Please review the virtual program to explore other sessions that are available throughout the LEADS conference this week. We are very grateful for your time and your participation, and at this time, we will stop the recording.